Hey everybody, this is Connor here, BoatsDon'tSink. Today we've got the new release. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this set for a while, and it's quite a strong one. So let's get into it. I've got my top 10 cards today. Next time we'll have some deck lists to go with them. Today I'm just going to talk about some of my favorite cards, what I think is the best cards from the set. They're definitely a lot more, I think, skewed towards the higher rarities this time around, as opposed to most sets we've been getting lately, which it makes card value pretty good, right? The first one we got is an uncommon, all to oneself Chloe. On play, it gains 1500 power, and on play, you can discard one Demon Continent character to search for one anti-magic mask from your deck and put it into your hand. So Anti-Magic Mask has two printings. One of them is from the booster set. It's a 2500 power counter that goes to memory, and then you can discard a climax at the beginning of your main phase to return it from memory to hand. So sort of like a reusable counter that gives you a climax ditch out. And the other one is from the trial deck. It's just search for a Demon Continent character, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, shuffle, and then send the event to memory. So we can already see sort of a memory theme going on here, where these events want to be in your memory. This might remind people a bit of Nisekoi, where the Raku can on play discard a card to add Promised Pendant from your waiting room to your hand, and then Pendant does the same thing as the trial deck mask, the yellow Pendant at least, which was the main one that people played. The big difference here is that Chloe, she does have to ditch a character, but she gets it from your deck, which thins your deck a little bit on your first refresh, if you're doing this like turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. Which is pretty nice. It means that basically Chloe ditching one, searching mask, and then mask to search another one, while you're not plussing, you're thinning two cards out of your deck, which is essentially Yuki 1-0 combo, right? Which people always sort of push as like, oh, the first deck thinning is really strong, gives you higher chance of canceling on first deck, which it is your most vulnerable deck state. Your first deck is usually your least compressed deck state, because you have no cards in your stock, no cards in your clock, no cards in your hand, no cards on stage, etc. when you start the game. So being able to remove guaranteed like non-climaxes from your first deck helps you a little bit in the long run. But at the same time, there's more tangible benefits than just the compression, obviously. Getting the masks that let you get any other character, it's effectively a drop search that thins an extra card, right? But it also helps you set up for your level 1 combo quite well in the deck. And this is a deck that very much wants to be resolving 4 copies of its combo over 2 turns. Or at least 3 copies in 1 turn, right? 3 in 1 turn, or 2 and then 2 are sort of the 2 ways that the deck wants to take it. But you want to be resolving a lot of copies of your combo in this deck. So this helps you set it up quite well. Next is my number 9, For Everyone's Sake, Shuna. This is a 3-2, 3500. Assist, all your characters in front of it get 2000 power. On play, salvage a Demon Continent character and act, rest this card. Look it up to 2 cards from the top of your deck and put them on top in any order. So this card is kind of a mashup of the Sword Maiden 3-2 and the Attack in Waves Asuna, with the 2k assist, the look at top 2, and the on-play cantrip. You don't get the heal from the Sword Maiden, but you get the cantrip of the Asuna, which I honestly think is, in a deck like this, better. Most of the other level 3s the deck tends to play don't cantrip outside of the level 3 climax combo. And this is a selective cantrip, which I think is quite powerful. On-play search and on-play salvage are 2 of my favorite on-play effects in the whole game. I think that being able to toolbox into any specific card that you need, especially at level 3, when you can get any of your level 3s that might have very narrow utility effects, is very strong. And then at the same time, it's a 2000 power assist, so not only are you grabbing whatever level 3 you need, you're also making it quite big. And winning board at level 3 is very good. It means that the cards your opponent spent resources on, they're level 3s. If you're winning board, they're spending resources and not keeping characters. So even if they get like a burst turn or whatever, their character dies and they're going to have to replace it, which means they've spent a lot of resources and then they're going to have to spend more resources to get more characters. It's a big strategy that Sword Art uses, right, in the like Yuki comeback and Yuki standby builds, where they put this Asuna down and just sort of play their like 11k healers that go up to 13 with this, and wall up, right? They're healing, they're just poking, they're staying quite compressed, and running the opponent out of feasible ways to end the game. And you can do that with this deck. You play a lot of healers usually in this deck. One of your early play heals is 10-5, so that puts it up to 12-5 with Shuna on board. Your other one is 9-5, so it goes to 11-5. You have generally pretty good power, weaker than Sword Art, but still good enough to be defending for sure. And the selective cantrip means that you can loop healers that died. If you play your early play heal and then it dies, and you go to level 3, you can play Shuna, grab it back, play it again, right? Or you can tutor into. We have a pretty good finisher, like off climax finisher that you can tutor into. You can tutor into the bounce. There's an on-play bouncer, which we'll get to as well. That might be good in very specific scenarios. So this Shuna's just sort of really good at helping you toolbox into those and keep board alive. And resting to look at top 2. It can tell you if you need to brainstorm. It can confirm top checks for a couple things that we want to look at. And it just gives you trigger information, right? Which, in a deck like this, that one of the big popular builds of this deck doesn't really play finishers. So trigger information and knowing exactly how much damage you can control that you're swinging for is really powerful in terms of being able to end the game more efficiently. So I really like this card a lot. At number 8, I have Dragonoid Milim. So this is the off-climax finisher I was talking about. First effect is on play, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's Demon Continent, you may deal 1 damage to your opponent. Gains 1,000 when your other character attacks, so it'll be 11-5 if you attack with it last. And when battle opponent becomes reversed, pay 3 clock kick. You can do this on either player's turn. This card's pretty solid. Having the damage on play and then also clock kick, it means you're getting 2 instances of damage that your opponent's pretty much not canceling. They might cancel the on play deal 1, but they can't cancel the clock kick. It allows you to remove characters that might have Encore. Not a ton of decks are playing level 3s with Encore right now, but like I said, Slime. This set itself does have an early play healer with Encore. Konosuba will be getting an early play healer with Encore. So you can remove those. Fate usually doesn't play any masters that it can Encore, but if they do, you can remove those, right? Ilya, I guess. But yeah, so the Felt, I guess ReZero Encore can Encore their Felt quite easily because of the extra stock it generates just by like hard Encoring it. So, you know, removing things like that's pretty good, but it's also just extra damage, right? It goes along with the plan of running the opponent out of feasible attackers. And it's just good off-climax precision damage when you're able to, you know, use the Shuna 3-2, I think I've got right here, yeah. When you can use this assist to confirm that you're going to hit the top check to deal 1, and know what your triggers are going to be, and you get like burn 1, attack for 2, clock kick. Like, it's a lot of very small instances of damage in conjunction with a lot of healers. So your opponent's having to get a lot of damage onto you, and you're just sort of chipping away at them with attacks that are very unlikely to cancel. So, really good overall. I like this as like a one of in the deck, just because it can get that little push if you actually need to close out the game with your resources. Number 7, we have Creating Potions Rimuru. So this card has a lot of effects. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this, the Devo Temptation Miku. These cards are very similar. Miku sees play in Fujimi in the standby builds. though you're often standbying it instead of hard playing it because it is a 1-1. Rimuru is a 1-0, and that's very important. Because Rimuru, they both have the same effect in pay 2 rest of this card heal, which is good once you've started like establishing board. This deck plays more healers, or more early play healers at least, than Fujimi does, and Fujimi wins board easier, so Fujimi doesn't want to keep playing new characters. Slime can keep playing new characters, but eventually you might run out of early play heals to play, or just healers in general to play, and this gives you more 2-stock heals, alongside whatever, especially if you're going into finishers, right? You can play your finisher and then use this to heal. But the other effects on this I think are better generally than the Miku. The Miku has the rest to give 2500, which is pretty good. But Rimuru's 2 effects are rest this card if there's no markers, choose a character in your waiting room, put it face down under this as a marker, and then rest this card, put a marker underneath this into your stock. So this is giving us stock generation that allows us to, play more healers. That's going to be a recurring theme with this set. Alternatively, it's just compression, right? Like, it's guaranteed clean stock, and even if you just get the marker before you refresh, that's 1 fewer card going back. So it gives you compression, it gives you resources, it lets you brainstorm a little more often, lets you play more healers, it lets you use his own healing effect a couple times, right? Though you can't do it in the same turn that you're doing the stock generation. But this deck is kind of stock hungry because you want to be playing the 1-1 masks. You have some level 0s that cost stock, and obviously you want to be early playing a lot. So getting this extra stock, even if it only gets you 1 extra heal in a game, that can be relevant, right? It's pretty similar to Kantai Collection has the Tatsuda, that has the same 2 act effects, but its 3rd effect is the Climax combo, to where when you play the Climax, you get to stock a marker from under it, so it speeds it up by 1 turn if you do the Climax combo. Obviously we don't have that option with this Rimuru, but we probably wouldn't play it even if we did. But it functions much in the same way, right? And Kantai Collection as well has the Maya Kaini. When you use an act ability, it gains on reverse, put the top card of your deck into your stock. Which sort of has inherent synergy with this, right? Because you use the act ability for the marker character, which turns on your other stock charger, so you can build a lot of stock. Well, turns out Slime also has that same profile, right? This attendance check Rimuru. So you can do that same sort of strategy here. The deck doesn't have a whole lot of other act abilities it wants to be using, though, whereas Kantai has like the rest to give 1500 power. We don't have as many other act abilities, and we don't want to be playing counters as often in Slime, because a lot of our level 1s aren't worth protecting, unlike Kantai's. So I'm not as big of a fan of the attendance check as I am the Maya, but I do think this Rimuru is really good at sitting in back row, generating resources for us, and letting us just do more throughout the game. At number 6, I have our first early play heal, Achieving Vindication Shion. It's a minus level if you have 2 or fewer climaxes in waiting room. During your turn, it gains 2000 if all of your characters are Demon Continent, and on play, discard 1, heal to stock. So this is pretty much the same profile as Dreaming Girl Shoko from Bunny Girl Senpai. Only difference is this heals to stock, Shoko heals to waiting room. So obviously this is a little more resource efficient on the stock, which is, I think in the long run for this deck better. This deck doesn't have a whole lot of trouble getting hand, especially with 8+ing triggers that all like plus to hand. But with how many level 3s you're trying to play in this deck, you are gonna need the stock more. Whereas Bunny Girl Senpai is a standby deck, right? So you're often winning board and not needing to play as many new characters. Whereas this deck is going to be playing characters more often. So I do think the Shion is better contextually than the Shoko. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same card. The 2 or fewer climax condition is not consistent. I don't think anybody's going to argue that it is consistent. Usually, right when you hit refresh, you're on timing to be able to play one, but it's harder to play the following turns, right? If you stay at level 2, you're going to have to hit refresh again in order to play another one. So I don't think it's as good as the other early play, just because you can't field it as often. But it is a very relevant card. It attacks for 11-5, which is 13-5 with our assists. So it can also beat over some lanes pretty cleanly. So good card overall. Number 5, we have Hero King Gazel. So this is on play. Look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, put them on top in any order, and return one of your opponent's characters to hand. Act, pay 1, choose one of your Demon Continent characters, and that character gets +1 soul until end of turn. Very similar to the Koini Naritai Aquarium Yoshiko and the Saber level 3 from Fate. Both of these are bouncers that can pump soul into your board, so it fits alongside these pretty well. There's a couple of key differences though. The soul pump on Gazel is repeatable. It's not on attack, but it doesn't pump your whole board, so it's going to be more stock to put equivalent amounts of soul in. But being repeatable means you have a higher cap of like how much soul you can put into something. You can pump the same character to soul. So this card is really strong at like soul manipulation, right? It's very good soul manipulation. And with the bounce, you can pretty much guarantee like Futaba. Obviously, you just need the bounce for, but like Rider and Priestess, these minus soul effects, you can bounce one copy. You can soul pump to beat over the other copy, right? If you have to side Rider, you can side for actual damage. And Priestess, you can frontal and not really care about the minus soul. Or even, honestly, possibly side through the minus soul if they only have one copy left on board. So Gazel is really good at dealing with these. These are all relevant cards in the meta, for sure. So it's nice to have Gazel as an option for that. But the other really notable thing is that he has the same on-play effect as the Koga, which I think is notably better than what the Saber and Yoshiko have, where you get to look at top 3 and put them back in any order. That's how many times you're attacking, right? So you now know all of your trigger checks for the turn. Alternatively, you know that you need to brainstorm, right, if there's like a climax or 2 in top. But otherwise, you know exactly what your trigger checks are going to be and in what order. So that, in combination with pumping soul, means you can control the exact amount of damage every single one of your lanes swings for. Especially in conjunction with like side attacks and stuff like that. You can control it so that your entire board swings like 2/2/2 on sides into level 3s even. Or like 2 level 3s and a level 2. And that gives you an insane amount of A, protection against counters, but B, just precise finishing power. So something like that is just really good at, if you want to dump all of your resources into, getting the last precise 4 damage. This is the guy that's going to do it, especially against a deck like Fate or against a deck like Goblin Slayer. So I think this guy is really nice at just closing out games and saving you from those heavy board control strategies. Number 4, we have After the Battle Rimuru. This card is on play, pay 1, clock 1, search your deck for a level 1 or lower. On play, discard 1, return one of your opponent's level 0 or lower to hand. So the actual just on play, pay 1, clock 1 search, we've not seen many times in English. It's a very coveted effect. Miria and Rem are pretty much the only other 2 things that have this effect. Nia has it in Gurren Lagann with a slightly modified cost, but no secondary effect. But it's a very powerful effect. It's very... unfortunately, right, Gurren Lagann and Cinderella Girls aren't nearly as strong of sets. But when you get it in a set like ReZero or Slime in this case, it's very powerful. It helps you guarantee whatever level 1 or 0 you want to progress through the game with. Which, as I mentioned earlier, this deck really wants to be fielding a lot of copies of its level 1 combo. So having this available to search your level 1 combo as early as possible is really good. Just direct selection into it. There's also lines where if you need more attackers at level 0, you can play the Rimuru, pay 1, clock 1, search the Chloe, play the Chloe, discard 1, search the Mask, and then attack twice, right? So you have your stock and your Mask ready to search out your level 1 combo next turn. So it's just really good overall. Removes more cards from your deck on first deck, which is solid. And gives you really great selection. So good card, very good card. The second effect is a little less relevant. It's very specific few matchups that it's good in. Two notable ones, right? Sword Art, you can return the Leafa to hand if they have it, which means that their counters aren't splitting as like 1k, 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 or 2k, 1k, or whatever, which could make lanes a lot more beneficial for you, right? Like swinging into their characters. It makes it a lot harder for them to win board off of counters. And the other one is the Shiro in Fate, where all their master characters get clock encore. Returning that to their hand and then killing their board and them not being able to encore it is huge. Because like a lot of times that deck wants to like loop clock bombs or loop level 1 combo or whatever by clock encoring it. And getting rid of that means they lose one of their like main sources of card advantage, honestly. They get a lot of their advantage through just triggering treasures, but also clock encore is something that they'll use to keep, you know, relevant attackers around. And being able to get rid of that is definitely notable. Definitely notable. The other time I've had it come up in my testing so far is like against Kantai Collection. You can return Z3 to hand, so that when you level up your opponent, they don't get to pay 2 search. Which is also cool. It makes it harder for them to set up their level 1 combo, pay out climaxes potentially. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of times I can think of that it's super relevant to return a level 0 to hand, because like if it's too big, you can just side attack it, and that does the same thing. They were going to keep it anyway, but now you don't have to discard a card. So yeah, it's not super relevant outside of like utility on opponent's turn, stuff like this. But it's a nice effect to have there. The first effect is mainly what we're playing this card for. My number 3, Successor Rimuru. So this is the main finisher of the set, and honestly one of the main level 3s of the set. So it has 3 effects. We're going to take them one at a time here. We're going to start with the middle effect. This is Climax combo. When this card attacks, if Megaru Mono is in your Climax area, you can pay 2, deal 2. This seems kind of underwhelming at first, and I'm going to be honest, it is underwhelming. But when we look at the rest of the card as a whole, and sort of the context that you can do this in, this effect gets a lot stronger. A lot stronger. Not really in terms of like finishing power, but in terms of just how efficient it is. So moving on to the second effect, moving on to the top effect rather. On play from hand or by the act effect of Inherited Wishes Rimuru, look at the 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose one, put it in hand, put the rest in waiting room. It digs for its own climax, which is good. That's already a good start, right? But it mentions a card here, Inherited Wishes Rimuru, that has an act ability that can play it. That's this 2-1. It's a pseudo like fusion effect. It's very similar to the Futaba from Bunny Girl, where the 2-1 and the 0-0 bring out the 3-2 at level 2. This one you can't bring out at level 2. You'd have to be level 3 or higher, but it also gives you a stock. You choose the Lost Journey Shizu, which is the level 0 climax swapper, which also increases our climax consistency at level 3, right? To always make sure we have the finisher combo. You marker the Shizu under the 2-1, and then choose a character from your waiting room, put it into your stock, so you've done this for 0 stock so far, and then you choose the level 3 Rimuru from your waiting room, and put it on top of both of them as markers. So for 0 stock, and just these 2 cards, so you spend 2 cards, right, from your hand, and 0 stock to get a level 3 that then cantrips into another card. So you start with 2 cards and X amount of stock, and you end with 2 cards and X amount of stock. But one of the cards that you've ended with is this 3-2-95. And again, you can't bring this out early at level 2 using this method, but you can get a super efficient 0 stock level 3 off of it that doesn't actually cost you hand. Which is really awkward. That's like That's so powerful that you just get a cantrip for 0 stock. Um, it basically means that as many copies of this setup as you have, you want to resolve. Because it's just free. Like, it's just actually free. I guess it's not technically a cantrip, right? Because you're turning 2 into 2. Most, like, quote-unquote cantripping level 3s, you get to keep the character on board and get a new card back in hand, whereas this is just replacing the Last Journey Shizu. But still, it's very efficient. Very efficient. You end up with, like, the only difference in resources is that one card from your hand moved to your stage and got way better, like way stronger. So I do think this is a very powerful engine in the decks that want to be playing this yellow level 3. And it's sort of what this deck is going to be going for a lot of the time once you hit level 3. Last effect is Act, Memory. Pay 1, rest one of your characters. If Conqueror of Flames Shizu, which is the level 1 at the top there, is in your memory, choose up to 1 Successor Rimuru, which is itself, or Predator Rimuru in your hand. Put it on any position of your stage, and put all markers underneath this card face down in any order underneath that character as markers. So if you have the markers from the pseudo fusion effect, they'll move to whatever you summon off of this. The reason this is relevant is because the Predator Rimuru, it's the trial deck level 3, it gains 1,000 power for each marker underneath it. It's essentially the blue-haired maid Rem, early play, minus the early play effect. So it heals, it scales for markers under it, and it gets a marker whenever it reverses something. But when you play it through this method, instead of the Rem starting at 9,500 power, this starts at 12,000 power, which is huge. That's really good. It also makes it a 1-stock heal, because you can just pay 1, rest a character, play the Rimuru. So that's also really good. Overall, just like a super efficient effect. It means that if you're wanting to go for your finisher turn, right, you get to do the pseudo fusion, get your first Rimuru for 0 stock, pay 1, get your second Rimuru, check top 3, add 1, pay 1, get your third Rimuru, check top 3, add 1. So now you've got an actual cantripping 1-stock level 3s, and you've paid 2 stock for your entire finisher setup, and barely spent any hand. Like, I just can't stress how efficient that is. And then even if you're doing triple burn 2, right, you only need to start the turn with 6 stock, because you spend 2 of it down to 4 on your actually playing your characters, and then you pay down to 2, attack back up to 3, pay down to 1, attack back up to 2, and then pay down to 0. And you get burn 2, swing for 3, burn 2, swing for 3, burn 2, swing for 3. Which is, you know, that's... It's not like Mikasa, it's not 1-1, but it's still deal 2, which is not a big number. It's a very good number for trying to finish off your opponent. And the combination of those numbers, right, if you stick 2 2s and a 3, that's 7, that kills from 3-0. So it's very good numbers for just consistently killing at really any combination of attacks sticking. So yeah, I think this card is incredibly powerful. I've only got it as 3 because the climax trigger is not great. And there's another way to play this deck that I think might be better. I still got to do more testing on that, but yeah, this card's just insane. This card's honestly really good. And that's why I've got it at my number 3, right? But it's also the option to play the healer, right? Instead of going triple finisher, you can go like double finisher and a healer. Or even just double healer, and one of them's at 12, the other one's at 10. Which is really efficient. The last really cool thing you can do with this card is standby. This is really high roll. Usually you have to end up playing like 2 standby and 2 of the yellow climax for it to get this to work. But if you standby this card out at level 2, and then move into your next turn and stand everything, right? Including the Rimuru, even if you're still at level 2, you can pay 1, rest 1, and start summoning your other level 3s. So you can actually just flood the board with those 1-stock healers that scale on markers at level 2, making them actually just ram but bigger. Ram. I keep saying Ram. I've looked at so many Ram cards from the new ReZero set with that level 1 combo. Goodness. But yeah, Rim. You get your Rims, but they're 500 power bigger. You just have to high roll into standby. Um, it's really cool. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's good at all, but it's really cool. It's something you can do. Lets you go into like a little bit of a standby game plan with the deck. I definitely wouldn't dedicate like super heavy to standby if you're doing that though. Number 2, also a level 3. This is our other early play healer. If there are 2 or more Conqueror of Flames Shizu in your memory, this card gets -1 level in your hand. That's the same card we needed in memory for the Rimuru level 3. Nice. Continuous, 2 or more other Demon Continent characters, it gains 1500, and Encore, put 1 Demon Continent character from your hand into your waiting room. Also, it heals on play. This card is over-spec beyond belief. Like... so this is the card you need in memory, obviously, it's the same card. We'll talk about this card in a minute. Spoiler alert, it's my number 1 card in the set. I don't think that surprises anybody. But this memory early play condition, we've seen it a couple times in English. Mirai Ticket Kanon has this condition. If you have 2 or more thinking for the other in your memory. Setting out Kazuma requires 2 or more aristocratic insignia in your memory. And those of you who lived through the hellscape that was Japanese 2014 Nisekoi, Kosaki needed 2 or more promised pendants in memory for her early play condition. Lord. PTSD. This card is better than Kosaki, probably. Especially nowadays. It's just a really consistent early play condition, right? Usually, and I think is the case with all 3 of these, there's sort of an, like, upkeep cost to it, right? Where you have to pay the cost for those cards to get them in memory. Usually they're like 1-1 events. But this card you don't, because it's a 1-0 character that goes to memory for free. So there's no additional upkeep cost other than actually playing the 1-0, which is the best level 1 combo in the set anyway. So it's an incredibly consistent condition that has almost no opportunity cost whatsoever. Which is just, it's not okay. Like, it's so good. It's also an early play with Encore. The only other early play with Encore we have in English up to this point is the Ran Mitake from Girls Band Party 2, which is a really good card. It was also quite high in my top 10 for that set, and a lot of people play it in their lists. What's noteworthy, these both heal. This has a way more consistent early play condition than the Ran. And also the Ran has to discard an Afterglow character, which is only, like, a fifth of Bang Dream's card pool. And usually not heavily played in their decks, outside of, like, a couple of good cards. Whereas the Shizu can discard any Demon Continent character, which is the entire set. Like, you just have anything. And you're 500, or no, you're not even 500, you're 1,000 power bigger. Ran is 9,500, the Shizu's 10,500. Who thought this was okay? Like, honestly, I don't think this card is broken to the point where it's like, you need to restrict this card, right? I don't think it's that good. But it is so over-spec compared to, like, every other early play heal I think we've gotten up to this point. Like, this is the best early play heal in the game. I feel pretty confident in saying that. It's, like, everything about this card just screams efficiency, screams consistency. Like, you play this, you swing with it, even if your opponent plays a level 3 killer. Unless they can send it to another zone, you can just ditch a character and encore it, and then you have a 2-soul beater that's 10-5 power for the next turn. And it's also, like, its early play is not dependent on your deck state at all. You can play this no matter how many climaxes are in your waiting room or anything. And it heals, so like you can stay at level 2 for longer, keep playing more of them, keep winning board. Yeah, this card's insane. This card is pushed. Very pushed. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that card. Wow. Conqueror of Flames Shizu, number 1. This is the level 1 combo. We've seen it pop up a couple times already. I've already talked about how you want to be fielding like 3 to 4 copies of this combo throughout your game, throughout level 1. You need it in memory for the Rimuru level 3, you need it in memory for the Shizu level 3. Let's look and see what it actually does. So the first effect is a climax combo with a gate trigger, so it is a plus in climax that somewhat increases your combo consistency due to trigger. When this card attacks, if legendary hero is in your climax area, put 2 cards in the top of your deck into your waiting room, choose up to 1 level X or lower demon continent character in your waiting room, return it to your hand, and this card gets plus 2000 power until end of turn. X is equal to the total level of cards put into your waiting room by this effect. This is the same level 1 combo we see on Nobuna and Fugo. These are the 2 times we've seen it. It also features on a lot of events, such as the cigarettes in Apocrypha. The difference here is Fugo and Nobuna both require you to have another character of their trait, which is interesting that this doesn't have that restriction. It's a completely irrelevant condition. You'll always have another Demon Continent character. But it's interesting to note that it doesn't have that requirement. And this gains 2000 power as part of its combo. Now given the combo costs extra power, right? Nobuna and Fugo both only lose 500 power for having the combo. Shizu does lose 1000 power for having the combo. Because it's less restrictive, she gains power off of it anyway. But it means that Nobuna attacks for 5000, Fugo attacks, because he gains 15 on play, he attacks for 7. Nobuna attacks for 6 with her climax. Shizu attacks for 7, because she gains 2000, goes to 6, her climax is a 1k1, so she's attacking for 7000 here. She also has another effect on top of that, which neither of these other cards do. So we've progressed into this card is just stronger than every other version of it that's been printed. When this card becomes reversed in battle, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a Demon Continent character, anything, or Anti-Magic Mask, aka the only event that you're probably playing in this deck, you may put this card into your memory. May, optional. Usually you're going to want to send it to memory because you need 2 of them in memory for your early play. However, if you already have 2 in memory, you can choose not to, right? So you can go like triple combo, send 2 to memory, let 1 die, and then double combo on the next turn by like playing the 4th copy and then using, we have a yellow 1/0 that's pay 1, summon a cost 0 from waiting room, send it to memory at end of turn. The same thing as like the Saya 1/0 in Bang Dream and the Gibral 1/0 in No Game No Life. We have that in this set, so you can very easily recur this one that dies out of your waiting room. And get 5 combos across 2 turns. Wow, that's fair. That's really good. They attack for huge. They kill everything. They lose to counters, because there's 7. So like a 6k with a 2k counter still beats it. A 55 with a 2k counter still beats it. Unless you play your Brainstorm that turn and minus 500 them, because spoiler alert, your Brainstorm does that. But they kill things, right? They force counters at least, which is good. They attack for a very large number. Yeah, card's sweet. This go to memory effect, we've seen it like twice in English. Both times on cards that were basically irrelevant outside of going to memory, right? Lucy has no other effects. Yui and Hinata just attacks for 3k. And neither of them are really, like, both of these sets have sort of a memory theme, but like neither of them are as tied into their deck's strategy as Shizu. But like when you take this effect and instead of putting it on a vanilla, you put it on a amazing level 1 combo that's like mill and selective plussing. Like, wow, this card's real good. This card's just real good. This card's hyper efficient. And unfortunately, like, none of the other level 1 combos in this set even come close to this card. So this is another set, kind of like Goblin Slayer, right? Where if you're not playing this level 1 combo, you probably just shouldn't be playing the set. As awful as, like, I hate saying that, because I do think that creativity in this game and like lots of exploration and testing is really good. Because I think a lot of things that people don't consider like the best thing in a set, a lot of times there are a lot of other very playable things that are quite good, right? There's a lot of room for sort of customization. And there are 2 other functional level 1 combos in this set, but Shizu is just so tied into the rest of the deck's strategy even if you're not playing the yellow level 3, because you have the early play, right? She's so tied into the rest of the deck strategy that you kind of have to play her. So she's really good. It's not a bad thing that you have to play her at all, because she's an amazing combo and goes to memory, which compresses you. We've seen this card go to memory, we've seen the mask go to memory, and I mentioned we have that 1-0, the Saya Gibril clone, right? So you have lots of ways to put stuff in memory. That's a big part of why this deck is so good. Playing with a 44 card deck is a lot better than playing with a 50 card deck. That is for sure. Your compression is just so much better than most other decks. Like you can realistically play your early plays, like your 2 or less climax early plays, and cancel all the way until your next refresh, and then just heal with them again on your next refresh. Like it's so strong. Like this set's pushed, to say the least. It might not seem like it because all the effects are, or a lot of the effects are pretty mundane, or they're clones of things we have. But just the way that they're combined in this set is so powerful. It's so powerful. And again, it's hard to say that it's like actually broken in a sense that it needs to like get restricted or anything, but it is certainly top tier. I have this set solidly an A+. Again, these are alphabetized, so I don't think it's the worst A+ deck. I think it's actually quite high. Nothing else on the tier list has changed this time from last time. Some people out there are probably screaming at me for having Fate in A still, especially after the invitational results where Fate got first. My only comments to that are, just because it got first doesn't mean that the weaknesses the deck has didn't change, or like changed or whatever. Like, they're still there, they're the same weaknesses. Every argument that I had for putting this in A before still exists. But also, that was a 32-man tournament. Kind of small sample size. One person did really well with it, he won the event with it. Congratulations to him. His deck was sweet. The deck is strong. Like, anybody that thinks my A tier is not strong tier, like, I think it's decks that can very reasonably win tournaments. But it's hard to really justify moving stuff around without huge shifts in meta sets. And it's hard to justify moving stuff around without lots of data. And the Invitational was not lots of data, right? He played 6 rounds, I believe, and only dropped 3 games. He was 12-3, which is good. Very strong record. But, again, it's not, a 10-tournament season with 20 people playing the deck in every event, right? And getting to look at that and seeing how many of them top. So I think everything else just sort of stays where it is for now. Also, Slime has Gazzle. Gazzle's good against Rider. And I know the argument is right, Rider is not the only thing that deck does, because the events are very strong as well. But Rider is a large part of that deck's identity at level 3. And a large part of the game plan that blows out any deck not prepared for it, right? Like, the deck can still compete against decks that deal with it, for sure. But the decks that can't deal with Rider get, honestly, just completely blown out. But Slime has Gazzle, and Gazzle 100% deals with Rider, so feels kind of weird to bump it up a tier with Slime's release. Or half a tier, really. Like, A and A+ are not an entire tier in difference. The decks in A and A+ are very close in power level. But yeah, so I think everything else pretty much stays where it is. Slime slots into A+ very cleanly. As of right now, it is the deck I would take to any large tournament. I would take it over any other deck in the game. And maybe I'll be able to explain why a little better when I put out some sample lists instead of just spewing about how good all the Shizu cards are. So yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Let me get my end card up here, right? Thank you guys for watching. Check me out, Twitter, Facebook, the Discords. Check out my shop on TCG Player, the store I work for. We unfortunately didn't get a whole lot of slime stuff because one of our distributors forgot our order. But yeah, we should have some stuff up there at least. So yeah, check us out. Give the video a like, comment, subscribe, please. We'll have some sample deck lists for you guys next time. So we'll see you then.